What is going on? It's Alex coming back at you with another video, and today we are grading every pick in the NFL draft up through day 2. Of course, if you guys want to see my actual full reactions to day 1, I have a whole video on it. Go check it out. But this is going to be broken down by division, every single pick that we're going to be talking about. So let's get into this right away. Today's video is going to be sponsored by a multitude of our beautiful sponsors, starting out with UnderDog Fantasy. They give you a $100 match on your first deposit of $10. Feel free to use all the codes like Hail Mary, etc. That's going to be in the description below, as well as Olipop, my favorite drink brand. I just do it so I get my own discount there. But also sponsor of the draft stream this weekend, Win Streaks. It's a great app that, you don't have to put in any bank account information. It's going to be also in the link tree as well, but essentially you just pick which team that you really like, and the top scorer from each week ends up, or the top 100 scores end up getting cash prizes sent to your Venmo. So that's pretty cool. Let's get right into this though. Pittsburgh Steelers ended up with Troy Fautanu, and round 1 ended up falling. There's a consistent theme here. It's due to have some injury history for the most part. So Troy Fautanu, potential knee concerns through the middle part of his career. And it looks like the Steelers are essentially saying, hey, we'd rather get dudes who we actually can start for one full contract at the very minimum, and then we'll have to replace them as time goes on rather than, banking on guys being 10 to 15-year starters. But hopefully Troy ends up, if he ends up being a little bit of a pain in the ass to keep health-wise, that's going to be a good problem because it means that he's worth keeping. So it's good, at least good to have that, that thought process. Like, hey, if his health actually becomes a problem, that means he's a good player. Therefore, it means we hit on the pick. So Troy Fautanu is going to be a great starter for us at left tackle. Ended up getting Zach Frazier at 51. I debated this being my least favorite pick because, I do have guys like Hunter Norzad who are, they're going to be in the 4th round. I thought A.D. Mitchell, potentially in striking range at this point, that would have been like one of my great picks, but this is still a fantastic pick. We needed a center. We got a great one as he's coming off a leg break, so that's just the only big issue there, but great wrestling background. He's a fantastic player. At 84, we went Roman Wilson, which I was like, you know what? Since we don't have Deontay Johnson, that's a really solid pick. Yeah, it's my least favorite, but it's like a B+. Like we got a ton of A-minuses essentially, and I love that. That's a really solid draft. Could be an overall grade of an A, but I wanted to actually make it relatively balanced out based on the grades I had. Peyton Wilson, obviously a very talented linebacker, fell because of injury concerns. Luckily, he doesn't have to be a guaranteed starter on our team, which means that either A, he gets to be healthy, or B, he's a perfect Cole Holcomb replacement for the future, who is also coming off an injury. Ravens are next. Went Nate Wiggins in round 1. Already discussed it. I love that for him. The options at offensive line were not good enough. And they end up snagging Roger Rosengarten, who's one of my favorite offensive linemen there at 62. And then, of course, in Baltimore Ravens fashion, they go Penn State edge rusher who slips to them at pick 93. There's not a pick that I did not like. Maybe Adisa Isaac would be the one that I would select because it was an A instead of an A+. Very, very tough to give them anything less than an A+ per usual for the Ravens every year. Bengals end up going Amarius Mims in the 1st round. Thought that was wonderful. You got Trent Brown in there in case Amarius needs a little bit of time to acclimate. Chris Jenkins and McKinley Jackson were also selected, defensive interiors. Chris Jenkins on the smaller side, around that 300, 305 mark. McKinley Jackson in that 325 mark. So I love that compliment that they bring that the Bengals have sought out in the past. McKinley's a great gap penetrator. I think that's phenomenal for the team. And then Chris Jenkins is just a very consistent run defender with pass rushing upside. Jermaine Burton was selected at 80. Honestly, I love the fact that he can either work in the slot or on the boundary, depending on what the team needs. The only issue has been his personality. Motor effort, has been relatively a pretty large issue, but the talent for him, he was a top 32 player on my board for a long time. So it's very tough to grade that one poorly. The Bengals have done a phenomenal job so far because even though some people don't like McKinley Jackson, his gap penetration ability is phenomenal. The next team that ended up drafting that we're going to be talking about is the Cleveland Browns. Pick 54, they went Michael Hall Jr. I thought that was fantastic. By the way, I don't have a favorite and least favorite pick for, teams with 2 picks. Doesn't make much sense. I like to have 3 picks so I can at least negate one of them because it kind of gives you guys a better range on my opinion. But Michael Hall was an absolute great pick. I'm scared shitless as a Steelers fan, but you know what? We'll see what happens. Zach Zinter was the 3rd round pick. Uninspiring, but still a good pick coming off, I believe, a leg break as well. He's just a really good run blocker. He's going to be in that nice rotation there with a lot of Big Ten offensive linemen in Luke Whippler as well as DeWanda Jones. Next, we go for the Chicago Bears. They had one pick today, and that's Karan Amagaji. Obviously, got Caleb 1 and Rome at number 9. That's a great 1-2 punch. And I think Karan is essentially on sale version of Olu Fashanu, who is the left tackle for Caleb Williams from high school. So I love that. You get to develop him for a year. Braxton Jones going into his third year, if I'm not mistaken, coming up for contract talks. Karan going to be a fantastic contingency plan there. I said he was my least favorite pick, but he was still an A. It's like impossible to like have a pick I don't like. I could have, potentially even just done the same thing as the Ravens and not had it there, but Karan's not going to start right away, and you do still need an edge rusher. Then we had the Green Bay Packers. Started off with Jordan Morgan. A perfect pick for the Packers based on what their drafting philosophy is these tackle guard hybrids and, great athletes. They will just end up working well in your system. Can end up being kicked to the inside, but very well might end up developing well as a tackle. Edgerrin Cooper, you ended up moving. I believe you guys moved up for Edgerrin Cooper or moved back. Either way, I'm tripping. I think y'all had 41 from the Jets and you ended up moving back. Regardless, going Edgerrin Cooper is phenomenal. That was an A+ pick. I ended up saying my favorite pick was Jordan Morgan. I'm tripping balls. That definitely was Edgerrin Cooper. Negate that top comment. I still love Jordan Morgan, but Edgerrin Cooper was the best pick. Then we got Javon Bullard at 58. I think Javon Bullard was a little bit overrated in my book, but it's still a solid pick. If you guys want a little breakdown, Jordan Morgan was a B grade, Edgerrin Cooper A+. Javon Bullard, Marshawn Lloyd, and Tyron Hopper were all C+, and C is adequate. So above that is like, I can accept that absolutely. Javon Bullard, I just didn't have that same value on him, but I still love the pick. I love the pick up, just maybe not at that spot. Marshawn Lloyd, I love the player, love the spot for him. I just, it's going to be a rotation. He's going to be like, he's going to be a unique build, but it's very interesting to see what happens, especially with fumbling issues in the winter. I just don't know if that is going to be my favorite thing. Tyron Hopper essentially is going to be Edgerrin Cooper's backup. So you're going to have two guys who are, in that 230 range, really good pass rushers. Like, it's going to be intriguing to see them having different roles, but actually being relatively the same in terms of what they actually should fit into. Now we got the Detroit Lions started out with that trade up for Terry and Arnold. Gas. Unbelievable. You have sent basically 2 third-round picks to be able to acquire Terry and Arnold as well as Carlton Davis and then Ennis Rakestraw Jr. So you spent your first 4 picks on defensive backs, if you think about it. I still think it's an A+. I had it as an A++. I think Ennis is excellent value at 61, and corners always get hurt too. So you're also essentially getting yourself like contingency plans in case of injury, good depth there as well. I could have debated dropping it to an A because, I still think you can get some extra help in the edge rushing room, wide receiver, offensive line, like Cooper Beebe was there. That's what would have kept it an A++ if you got Cooper Beebe, in my opinion. But A+ is pretty damn awesome. Then we got the Minnesota Vikings. Nothing new. Excuse me. Nothing new happened. My voice is dying on me. And then I just had some Trader Joe's soup dumplings. It's my 5th box of the day. It's not a good idea. I know my heart and my bloodstream is not having a great time, but we already talked about this yesterday. Feel free to check that video out because I'd prefer to allow you guys to have the in-depth version because there's nothing new there. But the Jaguars went Brian Thomas in round number 1 via that trade back. Love seeing them get a little bit extra capital by doing so. Ended up having Mason Smith be selected at pick 48. I just thought it was a little bit early. It was still a B- pick because I think it's a position where Eric Armstead can mold him very well. I just would have loved them to move back. Still had a lot of interior defensive linemen that I had a little bit above Mason Smith. And then they got Jerrion Jones at pick 96. For me, that's perfectly fine. Jerrion Jones is, he's a fantastic product. I think that is about proper range for him. I don't really think that there was anything that bugged me with the overall the compensation for it. Like, it was a B grade. I'm just double checking my notes right now. It is a B grade here. Like, deep down, I thought Jacksonville had another pick. Like, I really did. And then I kind of forget why they don't have said pick. But 96 was the only pick that y'all had in the 3rd round. Jerrion Jones is a talented player, though. He's a dog. Maybe a little bit early, but nonetheless, still a great pick. The Colts, man, you guys were off to an A++ start. Latu, I gave it originally a B. Now looking at AD Mitchell here in the round 2, it's probably an A-. AD Mitchell an A+. Matt Goncalves, I mean, did I give it an F? I don't think, did I give it an F? No, I didn't give it an F. There's no way I gave it an F. I gave it a C+. Like, technically, I could have given y'all still an A-. But AD Mitchell slipped because he could be a genuine douche nozzle. We'll see about that. Saw that video of Ballard kind of chewing people out for it. But Matt Goncalves is just way too early. I like him as a player, but, I mean, you moved up for him, too. Like, this dude's coming off a season-ending injury where he only played 2.5 games. Not really a fan of that. Like, that was pretty poor asset management. And you have Christian Haynes on the board too, who we'll talk about in a little bit. I think that was a bad job. Houston Texans then go Kamari Lassiter with their first pick. 4.65 40 is a little bit buggy, but I mean, he's a good player. Like, the tape speaks for itself. I'm just a little bit worried athletically being at 42. There's just a lot better players that are on the board, in my opinion. Blake Fisher went at 59. He's probably going to kick to guard for the short run, or they're going to kick Howard to guard. I love the fact that you have that flexibility. He's a good player. Ended up being a B+ grade. Kamari, I think, was still a B or a B-, so it wasn't like, or no, it was a C+, which is still, again, adequate. Keelan Bullock ended up being the pick at 78. I love the fact that they have a contingency plan there. At safety, him and why am I tripping up on his name? I mean, I loved him coming out of Baylor too. But regardless, safety that y'all have from Baylor that I'm randomly slipping on. His name just popped in my head too. Regardless, it's what, 12? Oh, I'm going to die. But, anyways, that's going to be a nasty safety duo that you guys have there. Jalen Pitchery is the name that my slow moving brain that will have to operate for 8 hours again tomorrow is thinking up. Then we got the Tennessee Titans going J.C. Latham to start out. I thought it was a little bit early. He's probably going to be moved over to that left tackle spot. But the real one that's a kick in the balls is T'Vondre Sweat. This guy essentially lied about his character, like saying, I'm done partying, I'm done doing all the drugs and stuff. Gets hit. His own car gets hit. And then he's caught DWI. Like, I'm not a fan of people who lie about their personality. That's just me. And, T'Vondre Sweat, talent-wise, is a top 50 player. So that's why I didn't give it a very low grade. I mean, it's acceptable. It's not desirable. It's acceptable. You're still getting good talents there. And I'm hoping, for God's sake, that it ends up panning out well, because I do like the Titans. I really like Will Levis. So I'm hoping that y'all don't end up in purgatory. Then we got the New Orleans Saints going Tali Fuaga in round 1. Already talked about that, obviously, in that video. But, I love the flexibility that they have. And then Kool-Aid McKinstry was an absolute steal there at 41. This team is so damn expensive that you do need premium positions with premium quality players on cheap contracts. Kool-Aid McKinstry can do that absolutely, so great move for them. Graham Barton was the move for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in round 1. Then they added Chris Braswell and Tyke Smith over in rounds 2 and 3. Chris Braswell, I mean, he's just kind of more uninspiring, a little bit early for him, but, it's a pick that I projected as well. He's a solid high floor guy. Not really going to help you win a Super Bowl, but he's a talented dude nonetheless. Tyke Smith, he's a fun player. Again, nothing that is, dropping, like, it's not jaw-dropping, but he's a fun player. He's a good player. I didn't have him in my top 100, but he's still a very, he's an asset nonetheless. But my only concern is that I think there's one genuine starter from this group, and that's Graham Barton. At least you hit on that, so that's cool. Then we have the Atlanta Falcons. So Michael Penix Jr., obviously that first pick, I already went ad nauseum about that. I'll let you go back to the video for that. Then this ass trade up happens where you send like pick 79. You get a 6th-round pick in return to move up like 6 spots. Like, are you kidding me? And then you get Rukaroro. You don't even get Jerzon Newton. You move up for Rukaroro. And I like Rook. This ain't no shit. This ain't no shade on Rook. Like, he's a good player. If you look at it on its own and you're just like, oh, you got Michael Penix, like, yeah, obviously a massive reach. But then you got like, oh, you got Rukaroro at 41. Okay, yeah, all right, cool. But then you also factor in that you lose a 3rd-round pick for it. You also lose out on Jerzon Newton, who went with the next pick. I would have fired the GM on the spot. I think that the GM has done an awful job. And you got Braylon Trice at 74. Awesome. Congratulations. I don't even know what weight he is at the moment. But, talent-wise, it's certainly worth pick 74. But it's like, I'm so happy you nailed one pick when you had some really damn solid options at every pick that you've had, and you messed up 2 of them by losing draft capital for someone you could have gotten, probably at 41. If not, boo hoo. There are incredible talents that were there at 41. Genuinely, I'm struggling not to give it an F. Braylon Trice keeps it from an F. And I would fire these guys on the spot if I were Arthur Blank. Simply put. Hate to say it. I hate being that guy. But, I mean, these guys are paid millions of dollars to do a job that we could do better. That's what pisses me off. Like, people like me, all these other content creators, like, we don't make jack shit. And then these guys make millions of dollars to absolutely ruin billion-dollar organizations. Seriously? This is why people do not have faith in corporate America. Because these guys who do not understand anything about how the world works end up making picks and end up just throwing stuff around and saying, Like the damn Patriots ended up moving back for less with the Chargers. And that is similar compensation range. And it was like a 4th for a 5th round swap. Giving up a 3rd round pick. Like, seriously? You gotta be kidding me. Like, genuinely. Like, that's just a shame. There's a lot of fans out there that are genuinely hurt by this too. Like, it's not just like me being a butthurt person. Because I'm not even a Falcons fan. I am complaining for the Falcons fans that had their faith, including me. I mean, I had my faith in Raheem Morris, this whole entire organization. I'm like, this is a great way to start. And get Dallas Turner, maybe even Romo Dunze if you go a little crazy, Byron Murphy. And then, you're going to get a nice corner in round 2. Like, this is what happens. You have a couple day 3 picks. You get a receiver there. Like, God, dude. Like, genuinely shameful. Genuinely shameful. And they got they got good players on paper. But the process to get that is a fireable offense. Thank you for listening to my TED Talk. Panthers ended up getting Xavier Leggett in round number 1. Move up by 1 spot. It was, I think, a 60 spot downgrade. I think it was like 200 to 141. Or 141 to 200 with the Bills to get that 5th-year contract. I mean, obviously, I was perfectly fine with that. Jonathan Brooks, I think it was via a move back because you had pick 39 as well. I mean, at least you moved back for that. But, I just didn't really see the value in that when you have around like pick 90. I mean, what pick was, or pick 88, I think, was Marshawn Lloyd. Like, you didn't need to spend that. You didn't. It doesn't make very much sense, in my opinion. Coming off an ACL tear as well. Like, that's not going to help out your quarterback in Bryce Young. Getting a center there in Zach Frazier would have helped. Not trade, like maybe jumping the Raiders, which we'll talk about soon, for Jackson Powers-Johnson would have helped. And then Trevor Wallace, he's a great athlete, but he's a developmental linebacker. It's going to be very tough. Like, I knew that linebacker would have been a selection for y'all, but it's just a little bit early for him. It's not a bad pick, but, honestly, I just don't know if he even starts. So it's just like the Carolina Panthers needed some difference makers, and right now I could see one genuine starter. Jonathan Brooks, a hopeful starter, and Trevor Wallace, a developmental guy, which I guess makes sense. You drafted one in the first, one in the second, one in the third, but I just think there was a lot better talent to acquire. Then we got the New England Patriots going Drake May at the start. I'm just very happy on the fact that they didn't go J.J. McCarthy. That's why it's my favorite pick they've done. Jalen Polk, at least they moved back, but dude, I mean, you sacrificed Lad McConkey to go Jalen Polk. You still had A.D. Mitchell on the board. Jalen Polk's not a bad player by any stretch, but he was to me like 4th round material. A really good blocker, fun after the catch. Like, that's cool. But at 37, it was a big reach. Then you got Caden Wallace. I love Caden Wallace. He was my number 50 player in the draft. I didn't expect for him to go this early. I thought he was going to be a day 3 pick. But Caden Wallace, my only issue for the Patriots is they need a left tackle, and that's pretty much it. And Caden Wallace is a right tackle. And I think he should be a guard, especially in the short run. So unless you're kicking City Sow out, or you're kicking your former 1st round pick out, I don't know what the vision is for Caden. We'll see about that. Then we got the New York Jets going Olu Fashanu and Malachi Corley, traded up for Malachi Corley. I think this is great. I gave Malachi Corley pick a B+ only because they had to trade up for it. If they stuck at their spot and picked him, he would have been an A-. I just ended up saying, hey, I'm happy to roll with the A- here. Talent's great. Great compliment. This is arguably as good as you can ask for. Then we got the Miami Dolphins going Chop Robinson and then Patrick Paul. I feel like both of these are relatively pretty noticeable reaches, almost panic picks. Like Patrick Paul's going to develop. He's a long-armed dude. He's going to have a year to develop under Terran Armstead. Like, that's why it's okay. But Patrick Paul has a lot of issues that I don't think are 1 year solvable. And with Tua Tagovailoa having his injury-riddled past, I mean, he's been healthy lately, and knock on wood that continues. Like, I just don't want a player who's going to be a genuine liability to be, starting on a team. So I just don't know if Patrick Paul is the guy who I necessarily trust at that spot, because you could have traded back, the worst case scenario, you could have had Caden Wallace if you had to, and then had him as a guard in the short run as he trains up to be a tackle, right? By trading back and getting extra draft capital. So that's my thought process on that. Chop Robinson felt like a little bit of a panic. He's a DPR, but it's one of the best spots for him to go. Then we got the Buffalo Bills going Keon Coleman. I got to move my camera over. I didn't even realize that. Keon Coleman via that first pick. I mean, I love Keon Coleman. It's a pick I sent to the Bills plenty of times. Cole Bishop at 60 is my favorite, though. I mean, yeah, they could have went after a more valuable position, but Cole Bishop belongs either in Green Bay or in Buffalo, and this team should be looking for a contingency plan at safety. Then you got Dwayne Carter, who is a great pocket pusher. I mean, I basically gave like an A and maybe an A+. I don't know if I gave an A+ for Cole Bishop. Checking it right now, I gave it an A. And then Dwayne Carter was like a C+. So I gave it an A-. Like, they hit on two positions of need with great value, and then a third guy who's kind of a position of need with okay value. Then we got the Commanders. I thought they had a lot of potential and butchered it by that Philadelphia Eagles trade. I mean, you got 50 and 53 by moving back from 40, like 10 spots, and you had to give up a third-round pick. Like, this was their opportunity to like really hit some bangers. And they went Jaden Daniels in the first, obviously, perfectly fine with that, like that pick. Johnny Newton, I really like that. I was like, okay, they're off to a banger start. Then they ended up getting 50 and 53. I'm like, ooh, damn, okay. Then they got Mike Sainristil. I love Mikey. You already have someone in the slot in Quan Martin. Not really sure what the role is for Mikey, but I love the enforcer mentality that he will bring. So I was okay with that. Ben Sinnott was way too early, dude. I mean, how many tight ends have we seen go? I mean, like, off the top of my head, it's been him and Brock, right? Like, I can't even remember another tight end that went. Oh, Tip Ryman. Oh, well, that was worse. But, I mean, come on. Like, you could have waited to, like, round 4 if you wanted to get a tight end like Theo Johnson, right? So, Ben Sinnott, he's a good after-the-catch player. I think he'll potentially start on the team, but is he a top 32 tight end in the NFL? I don't think so. And that's what you should be able to get in the second round for a lower value position, right? Like, it has to justify the value you're spending on with that pick. It doesn't matter if you're spending it on a tight end or a quarterback. Like, it's still the 53rd pick, so you have to justify it. It's like, hey, it is what it is. So that one certainly perplexed me a little bit. Brandon Coleman's a fun one. I think it's still a little early for him. I think he could end up being a really good tackle, but will be a guard in the short run as his processor improves. Then you ended off the third round with Luke McCaffrey. Just a bit early, man. So many good wide receivers on the board. I just thought there were some that were a bit better than Luke. Then we got the Dallas Cowboys. Started out with Tyler Guyton. I thought that was perfectly fine, but, I had my reservations. I said that, probably should have looked at someone who's a little bit more flexible in their role. Either Tyler Guyton works at left tackle or else you're screwed. That's something that, sometimes I applaud cojones because it works, and I'm hoping this is the case because I live in Dallas. I would like to see Tyler Guyton succeed, but it is what it is. Marshawn Nealand, friend of the show, glad to see him go there to the Dallas Cowboys. He's a fantastic edge rusher, and this is a great D-Law contingency plan as he gets older. Cooper Beebe at 73. You might have to put him as a center for the short run, but hell, why not? If he can snap consistently, who gives a damn? This guy is incredible value. And when Zach Martin retires, you have yourself an elite guard to replace him, or you might just be able to have one of the most elite lines as well. Then you got Maurice Liufau. I mean, it's pretty obvious. It's one of my few F grades. I mean, the amount of solid linebackers that were available, and you chose Maurice. He didn't even have an official full grade from me, so I was just not a very big fan of that at all. I actually think I gave it a D-. because it is still a position that I thought they should upgrade. And, he's a toolsy guy, but at 87, that was really, really rich in my opinion. Might come back to bite me in the ass, but you know what? I'm really hoping it does, because good football is always better than just being right about a player you don't like. Then we got the Eagles, moved up for Cooper DeJean, ended up getting a 3rd round pick, and then moved back twice with said 3rd round pick. Cooper DeJean, I thought it was pretty damn awesome that y'all could get, 2 guys who were considering there at 22. Cooper DeJean obviously falling because of that leg break. Probably teams are a little bit concerned as to whether he could end up playing actual football on that broken leg. It's 12 days. You don't get to really see who they are. But at 40, applaud the cojones. And they listed him as a DB, so he probably will be a safety transfer. My only issue is if he ends up not being a safety, which again, DB means he's probably going to be a safety, then if he has to play a boundary corner, you drafted 2 boundary corners. The issue I see is that in a world where hopefully this does happen, and it will need to happen in order for, the future to be bright for Quinion and Cooper, who still need development, but Ringo and Ricks improve to the point where they should be at least getting reps. You have 4 young boundary corners and not really anybody to trust in the slot. You got Isaiah Rodgers, but I mean, the dude hasn't even played football in a year. He was he was able to play outside a lot. So, you're just trusting in that transition to the slot. And then you have Maddox, who's on a 1-year deal. So the slot is very, very much open. Cooper DeJean's a little bit stiff. You don't want him to go up against Amon-Ra St. Brown, right? You don't want that. So I don't really trust him as a pure slot. So you're going to get safety or a boundary corner. That's why I wish. If you got Terry and Arnold, I fully support Cooper DeJean. But Quinion Mitchell is probably the 2nd best player you could have hoped for. That's incredible. Still excellent. Then you traded back twice, got 2 extra 4th round picks, then got Jalix Hunt. Apparently it was Vic's number 1 guy. He was his favorite dude. Former safety convert, and you know what? It's not a bad pick. I gave it a C+, even though, for the value, I should have done it. I should have given it much lower. But when you look at the vision for the team, Sweat is a similar size comp. I mean, it's about 255. Sweat's about, I think, 260, 265. You get to have somebody who is going to be able to train up someone who's still a raw player, but very good athlete. And, he's very versatile. So I love that because, again, former safety. It's not like this dude is, going from D end to tight end, or tight end to D end, right? So you have a very bright future. Yeah, I think have 4 or 5 or more 4th round picks as well. So you're loaded up. It's just, Jalix Hunt is, when you had guys like Peyton Wilson on the board, a little bit underwhelming. Then we got the New York Giants. They went Malik Neighbors at the start. Glad that they didn't mess that up. I mean, if they went J.J. McCarthy, I probably would have liked it just as much. But Malik Neighbors, stud. Then you got Tyler Nubin at 47. Dream draft, if everything would have switched up, I would have went McCarthy at 6. And then A.D. Mitchell at 47. But, topic for another day. Nubin was just a player who I wasn't a huge fan of. He's outside of my top 100. But, safety is a position you guys could target. Then Andrew Phillips, my number 9 player in the class, you take 70. This guy is as good as you can ask for. So you got a super stud there. Obviously, it's going to be my favorite player, a true A++. Then we got the Niners. I warmed up a little bit more to Ricky. It's fun. We did not see Ayuk get traded, nor did we see a trade for Debo. Then we got Renardo Green. You did a 1-pick trade back, got a little extra draft capital, and got a super stud corner in Renardo Green. That was an actual A grade. I did think that you should have tried to trade up for Roger Rosengarten, but then you traded up for Dom Pooney, who I think belongs to the interior of the offensive line, but I didn't really love his tape. For me, he was in my 150s range to 200. So hoping I'm wrong about that because I wanted to love him so much more. But usually when I love a player, I want to love a player and then I can't, that's what the red flag is for me versus a player who I go in with a negative bias from the beginning. I purposefully try to avoid that. With Dom Pooney, I came in with a very positive bias. And every time I was trying to see something, I was trying to find it and I couldn't. So regardless though, Renardo Green was a stud pickup for them. The Niners always find a way to, surprise me with their picks. And Renardo Green, I talked about it, is they always underwhelm me with the overall compensation, but they always get 1 or 2 players I love, and Renardo Green is one of those. Ricky Pearsall is a player I like, but Dom Pooney to me is a bit of a reach. Then we got the Seahawks. They ended up grabbing Christian Haynes at 81. Byron Murphy, I thought was solid value. He's a fun-ass player to watch, man. Like, he's going to be a massive asset for your team. Christian Haynes, that's a perfect guard to put in. He's going to have to switch to left, but who gives a damn at 81. Freak athlete. Anchor is a bit of an issue, but actually my one issue with Oluwatimi was his anchor as well. So it's so far worked out. Seattle knows how to work with those guys. For me, that's a big win. Then we got the Rams when Jared Verse first. I love that to death. They traded up for Braden Fisk. Otherwise, I would have probably put that as my favorite pick for them if they stayed put. I didn't think that he was actually that big of a risk. I would have stayed put and ended up getting Michael Hall at their original spot, but it is what it is. Then we have Blake Corum. You're essentially overlapping roles with Kyron. That's my only issue with it. And then you got Cam Kitchens, which I thought was actually really good value. You might as well take a shot there with Cam because it's a potential first-round player who just had a really, really bad year. Which I guess we give Cam Kitchens the pass, but we don't give Kalen King the pass. Life, man. Life. Arizona Cardinals, though. Marvin Harrison Jr., first off. Would have been the easy favorite, but I tried my best not to put the first pick as the favorite. Darius Robinson, already talked about it. Good player, just underwhelming for the value. Then you got Max Melton. I thought that was dynamite. You ended up trading back to and got Max Melton. I was like, dynamite. You fleeced the Falcons and got that. Dynamite. Then you got Trey Benson at 66. I was like, all right, bet. I mean, this is a really good class. And then Isaiah Adams. I was like, solid. You got a good guard in there, potentially even a tackle, but probably a guard. And then Tip Ryman. And I'm like, damn, 12 personnel, huh? But Tip, I like Tip. I don't want to complain about Tip. That sounds low-key fruity, but, it is what it is. But regardless, I don't really want to complain about him because I like him. But I sure as hell don't like him in the top 100. I sure as hell don't like him to the Cardinals. And there was a lot of really good players there that I thought they passed on. So I was very underwhelmed by that personally. Of course, day 3, that's where you can really feast and load up some really good steals, and that'll totally change the tides. But, I thought it was a shank of a pick right there. And then Elijah Jones. My only issue is, damn, dude, this corner core is small. Like, these guys are skinny. Max Melton's about like 190. He's a built dude, but he's like sub 6 foot. Garrett Williams, sub 6 foot. Then you got Elijah Jones, who's 6'2", but the dude's a stick. Like, I love the talent of all three of them, but what happens when you go against a formidably sized receiving core? That's what scares the shit out of me. So Elijah Jones, though, still a talented player. If you wanted to go after someone who's a little bit more formidable, I would have went after Kalen Bullock. So that would have been my dream pick for them, but technically still can be made on day 3. Now we got the Kansas City Chiefs. They just made a quick move up. Obviously, their 3rd round pick ended up being part of that 1st round pick, but got Xavier Worthy. I pretty much called him, we have Hollywood Brown at home. I guess it's the contingency plan for Hollywood Brown, even though I don't really think that Hollywood Brown was the role that was missing. At least you have a quarterback that could potentially give him the best shot at succeeding. Kingsley Suamataia did a 1-spot move up with the Niners. I was a pretty big fan of that one, even though I'm not the biggest Kingsley guy, but, that's a developmental tackle. No, we are not skipping to the Chargers yet. A developmental tackle, nonetheless, you can at least put it left or right tackle. I think there's value in that. Then we got the Chargers going Joe Alt to start out. He's going to be playing right tackle. I do have my concerns over how he can translate over to there, but I almost trust Rashawn Slater to potentially be able to bail him out if that situation arises. Then we got Ladd McConkey at 34 via that trade up. Great trade up as well. But Ladd McConkey, I guess the shoulder and back issues aren't that big of a deal. So they get a fantastic receiver there. And then they got Junior Colson at 69. I love that fit. That's why it was my favorite player. There wasn't a pick I didn't like. I could have said Joe Alt's transition, but regardless, all of those picks are actual A grades. It would have been an A+ if you didn't have to trade up for Ladd, or if Joe Alt I had a little more faith in, but still fantastic. Then we got the Vegas Raiders starting out with 2 bangers, right? You missed out on like the players that fit you the best. You end up going Brock Bowers, who's your number 1 guy on the board. 12 personnel, gas, right? Like, incredible talent. Then you got Jackson Powers Johnson, who fell to you. Unreal. And you need a guard. Fantastic. And then you just kick me right in the nutsack by going Delmar Glaze. Like, I love Maryland players. I want to love them. Who the hell thought Delmar Glaze was a day 2 player? I'd never heard one whisper of it. That was a shock to me. And he was a left tackle. If I'm not mistaken, left tackle's not open for business. It's right tackle. And there were some good offensive tackles still available. That was a complete shank. So it went from an A to A plus grade back to a B. Because I had a B and an A plus, almost an A plus plus, and then an F. It all balances out as a B. Denver Broncos, ending off the video. Start out with Bo Nix. I was a big fan of that one. You know, I'm a closeted Bo Nix guy, but of course, every single mock draft you could see on my board exactly what I thought. So just because I don't talk about it doesn't mean I don't think it. That's also why I leave that there for you guys. And then they ended up getting Jonah Ellis, sticking and picking. I think that's awesome. He's a DPR. Sure. At 76, he's a damn good DPR. There's DPRs that went at 21 overall. And you got a really good one there at 76. Fantastic move. His IQ in the run game, not great. The processor, not there. But you know what? At 76, you don't need a full prospect there. You need somebody who's going to make a damn good difference on particular downs that you're drafting him for. And that's exactly the player Jonah Ellis is. So that's going to be the video. Thank you so much for watching. Love y'all. See you on the far side.